Hey guys, it's Ryan here with More to Money. One of the most common topics we talk about with finance professionals every single day is the discussion around whether it's better to build your own software or to use a white label software provider. We're going to record two separate videos. In the first video, we're going to talk about the 5 main benefits and drawbacks of if you choose to build your own software. Then in the second video, we'll do the same analysis when it comes to using white label software providers. So getting started in this video with the 5 main benefits of actually building your own software, we'll start with advantage number 1, which is you'll have full control over the product. This is probably the most obvious and biggest advantage to building your own software. You're going to have complete control over everything. You're going to get to look far into the future and see where you want to take your software over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. So if it's really important to you that you're building something unique that's not available to anyone else in the marketplace, building your own custom software is going to be an absolute must. So really, this is going to apply if you're trying to make your technology the core part of your business. So if you really want to integrate your software so closely to what you're actually doing with your core business, it kind of takes using white labels out of the picture here. You really need to build your own custom software. The second advantage is that you're going to own the actual technology itself. So this actually kind of builds off of the first point, but it's slightly different. So owning the technology means that you're going to control the intellectual property. So you're actually going to be able to have something that is specific to you, not available to anyone else, but you're actually also building that intellectual property up over time. So as time evolves, that is going to become more valuable to you. The more that you build the technology, the more it's going to kind of create this snowball effect where you're making more and more technology that's more sophisticated. It's more complicated, it's more detailed, there's a lot of nuance to it. So owning your own technology does have a lot of benefits. The third advantage is that you're not going to have to rely on another company to keep prioritizing you. It sounds obvious, but whenever you're building your own software, you control what the priorities are. When you're using a white label solution, you're the customer, you're not the owner. So you are inherently relying on that white label service provider to be kind of closely aligned with your mission and your values and your priorities. When you own the software yourself, you don't even have to worry about that. Whatever you want to work on is what's going to be worked on. So this one is kind of an obvious one, but it is a huge benefit, and we have to mention it in this list. The fourth advantage is that you're going to control your own future. This is really important because there's no actual guarantee that the white label company is going to be around forever. You really have to rely on conversations that you're having with account representatives and sales reps to understand like where that white label sits in the marketplace, what the future that they're anticipating is, and how they're going to get there. When it comes to building your own custom software, you don't even have to think about that. You're the owner, so you don't have to worry. You know exactly where you're at, how long it's going to take to get places, and you can think less about the future from a risk aversion and more about the future as planning. So the fifth advantage here is your software can be a huge asset to your business itself. I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but you really over time are going to create value to your business through your software. So over time, you're going to be able to expand into new offerings. You're going to be able to refine your features, build new tools. You can integrate it directly with your marketing. Over time, you're just going to be creating value that adds on itself over and over again. So that's just a quick look at the top 5 benefits of building your own software. So what are some of the drawbacks? The first and most obvious is that building your own software is incredibly expensive. You really have 3 options whenever it comes to hiring the engineers you need to build your product. The first, you can hire a freelance engineer. The second, you can hire an agency to build the product for you. Or third, you can hire engineers and bring them on staff yourself. So the first, whenever it comes to hiring freelance engineers, they typically run at a rate between $50 and $100 an hour. So those hours can add up really fast and your costs can grow quickly. The second, if you use an agency, they're typically going to quote you per project. Those quotes can range anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to get you an MVP, which is what we call a minimum viable product. And if you want to scale up and build some really unique features or custom designs, you can be in 6 figures pretty quickly. Some of those quotes can go from $100,000 to even $300,000 for the project if you want to include both web, iOS, and Android App Store releases. The third, you could hire engineers yourself. So engineers, as you know, are pretty expensive, especially whenever it comes to building what you need to actually get a scalable product in the hands of your clients. Typical engineer salaries run from 100,000 up, and the best engineers are the most expensive. So it is really expensive to kind of even get yourself going, get to that MVP state. And then what you really need to understand is when you get to the MVP state, that's not really enough. To get to that kind of like cool feature, custom look, feel, like for what it relates to your business, you're going to need more work beyond just that MVP. So that is really the biggest and most obvious challenge to building your own software. The second is you are going to need to put in a lot of time planning and working with your team directly, regardless of which of these three that you choose. So again, I've been an engineer for over 10 plus years. I've been a member on teams. I've led teams. I've worked with several small to medium-sized businesses to build custom software and to use white label partners to kind of speed up this process. What I can tell you from my experience for sure is that there is a lot of time planning and working with engineers in the team. So regardless of which of the options you choose, it's really difficult, and it's a common misconception that you can kind of just pay someone and they'll just build this for you. Engineers are going to have a lot of questions. By trade, we're very curious and detail-oriented people. So there'll be a lot of planning sessions. There'll be a lot of discovery meetings. There'll be a lot of follow-up as the app itself is actually being built. So you can expect either weekly or bi-weekly meetings to review kind of the progress, to set new goals, to follow up and make sure that everything's on track when it comes to the timeline. If anything unexpected comes up, if there's bugs that need to be resolved, the list goes on and on. So whenever it comes to building software, you really need to understand what you're actually getting yourself into. What a lot of people don't actually realize is you have to be comfortable with the fact that you might have just created yourself a second full-time job. So it does take a lot of infrastructure. The last part to understand with this is that engineers alone are typically not what you need to get a scalable product that is going to work really well for lots of people. You're also going to need some infrastructure here when it comes to your project management. There's full roles in the software engineering world for product owners or project managers that will handle the work that the engineers need to be doing and make sure that they don't have any questions, or they don't have what we call blockers, and that they're able to work, a full 8 hours every day uninterrupted without questions, things like that. There's a lot of infrastructure that's needed. So that is the second biggest challenge. The third challenge to this is, obviously with what I just said, you can probably expect it takes a lot of time to get past that MVP state and to get where you have a working product. So I just touched on this with the previous challenge, but it just takes so much time to get where you think you want to go. So there really are two big phases when it comes to building your software, which is reaching that MVP, which is kind of all of the things that you have to be competitive in the marketplace. And then there's the next step to it, which is actually making sure you have all of the features that make you unique and make you stand out in the marketplace. Getting to that level and making sure you're going to have everything that your business requires is a big challenge. You also need to make sure in this time that you're keeping up with what the competitors in the marketplace are already actually doing. So as soon as you start to offer software, you now have to pay attention to your competitors. This is going to take a lot of time and effort to make sure that you stay up to date whenever it comes to what you're bringing in the marketplace. The fourth challenge is that this is going to require ongoing maintenance. I'm sure you've noticed how much your phone or apps that you use require updates. This is because software never actually really finishes. Just getting your product out into a workable build wherever it can be used, it's scaled by your users, is a great achievement to reach, but then you'll move into the phase of doing ongoing maintenance. You'll need to be fixing bugs, you'll need to be adding new features, you're going to continue to work with your team. So one thing you really need to make sure you understand is that you aren't really going to be finished with this. This is going to be an item that's on your books probably for a very long time. You can get your product to a workable state where you can kind of like offboard some of that engineering work, but over time, that technical debt is going to build up and you're going to have to revisit it or kind of be complacent with the fact that you're never going to move forward with your app or platform any further than it is today. So that's the fourth challenge. The fifth is that whenever you're building your own software, you're going to be creating an opportunity cost. So what I mean by this is you're making a trade-off. And by opportunity cost, what I mean is that you're trading that time that you're spending with your engineers, whether you've outsourced them or hired them yourselves, That time that they're building is time that you're not in the market. So you're missing out on that opportunity of already being in front of your leads or your clients because you're in the middle of what does take a long time to build that app or platform into a really advanced state where you have all the features and the functionality and the design that you want. All of that time that you're spending there, you don't have something in the marketplace. That is one of the key benefits whenever it comes to white labels, which we'll talk about more in the next video, but you are making that trade-off. This is the end of our 5 benefits and drawbacks when it comes to building your own custom software. We're going to do this same breakdown in the next video, but we're going to look at white label solutions. I'll see you there.